broadcast.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the first edition of OH Dialogues, a digital conference focusing on technology, business, and creative solutions that are curated for OOH. This is the first edition of OH Dialogues, and we thought it would be very timely to focus attention on making audience data talk for OOH. As they say, data is the new oil. Back in 2006, when the British mathematician Clive Humby made that assertion, one hadn't seen what we got to see about data in the last 8 to 10 years. Today, data is not just oil. I would say that it is the lifeline or the lifeblood of business. Everything that we do today is data, structured, unstructured data, that when you use the analytical tools, you derive insights out of that are then used for decision making. If such is the pervasive nature of data, and such is the advancement of data science, then can we afford to have Indian OH in relatively data dark scenario? Over the last 10 years, Indian OH has taken some steps to initiate the ushering in of a common currency for audience metrics by virtue of a survey, but none of those steps have as yet led to any concrete results. In these years, the ways and means of data collection, data analysis, and data application have all changed. And today what we are seeing is a new generation of AdTech companies and businesses that have forayed into AdTech, coming up with very robust audience data tools that can be applied in the OH space. So with that, I would be very happy to welcome Srikanth Ramachandran, Group CEO of Moving Walls, and Bharat Rajamani, CEO of US Advertising, to be the speakers for today's conference. They are, of course, very well-known personalities, and their role in OH is very widely known. So I will not introduce them, but it's very fortunate that we have them as speakers on today's conference panel. I would now invite Srikanth to open the innings with his presentation. It would be for about 10 minutes, Srikanth, and your presentation will be followed by Bharat's presentation. And after the presentation, we will have a very brief discussion on some of the key points that you've touched upon. And then, of course, the floor will be open to the audiences for the questions to be directed to our panel speakers. Before that, I'd also like to reiterate that all of our participants, other than the speakers, will be on mute, but you're most welcome to send in your questions via the QA button, and your questions will be taken up, and I will present them on your behalf to our panel speakers. So with that, let me now invite Srikanth for his presentation. Over to you, Srikanth.
Okay, wonderful. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Rajiv. As you said, open the innings. I was reminded of Krishnamari Srikanth opening the innings.
Absolutely, your namesake, of course. I'm sure it will be trailblazing like he did.
Oh, thank you. Let me get my presentation set up and okay, brilliant. I always like to start with Hollywood because that's been my inspiration, and I think it should be an inspiration for all of us because they predict where the future would be in 20, 30 years' time. Obviously, the biggest one was Blade Runner, which talked about these cities which would be filled with digital media that was connected together. Minority Report was about personalized screens, IoT, Internet of Things devices, identifying people, and then the content changing dynamically. I don't know how many of you have seen a movie called Focus. I highly recommend it. There are some inspirational scenes in the movie where they talk about priming of an audience as they go through their daily life. How do you prime them? And obviously, the Madman to Madman is also an interesting set of episodes for you to watch, serial to watch. Anyway, so that was the background, and this has been my inspiration as I went through my journey in life and I started building Moving Walls as a business about 5 years back. But if we were to rewind and we look at the last 10 years, what we will start seeing is that internet advertising has taken total control. And in a way, the pandemic has helped them even grab a greater share. So if you look at advertising overall, and we classify search, social, YouTube equivalents of video advertising, etc., and we group them, they've easily crossed the 50% mark compared to the traditional media of print, TV, radio, and OH. And I think one of the biggest contribution was the mobile, and the first iPhone in 2007 created that. But a lot of us know instinctively that Autoform or the Outernet primes us audience, and the internet actually activates us. So I've had these personal experiences when I see a billboard. When I was in San Francisco, I saw a billboard called Brex, and Brex is one of the largest advertisers in the US. The first thing I did was pull out the phone and search for it. So it's the yin and yang. In Chinese, they say this, the yin and yang. So Autoform primes and mobile activates. So while there's a lot of research which shows this, and if you've seen the latest report by IAB, which was published last week, more and more Autoform campaigns have started using mobile. So I think that's really where the industry is going. So if we look at this decade, the next 10 years, I believe that it'll shift to audiences in the Outernet, whether it's an Amazon, and even in India, I believe Amazon is building close to 100 stores now as we speak. The big digital brands have started building an Outernet presence where they start looking at how do they play the internet audience with the Outernet. I think that's going to be the exciting decade that we are going to live through as we get past the COVID, which is also a very interesting period. But if we take a snap back and look at where are we today, we are still, each media is looked at in traditional way in an isolation. We look at OOH, static classic billboards in isolation. We look at mobile in isolation, and we look at digital screens or digital OOH in isolation. I think this has to change. So one of the things that we do is, we built a platform which is patented, and I'm going to show you a very quick view of that platform. Give me a second here while I set up the quality to be better. This is one of the bugs in. So it makes planning simple using all of these data. Having audience data is one aspect. How do you make it easy for people to plan Autoform and mobile campaigns? It's just a few clicks. Like you do a Facebook advertising, you should be able to pick the audiences that you're wanting to reach, whether it is by gender, age, or by certain behavioral profile like auto lovers, coffee lovers, etc. And then look at sites, and you look at what is the views of those sites, whether you like the site from an audience perspective, and then you are able to add it to a shopping cart. And as you add these sites to a shopping cart, you're able to even look at what are the points of interest around these locations, and then make your selection and build a final list of what those sites that you are interested in. Obviously, you can filter it by different areas. You can only look at classic sites, which is the static posters, or you can look at digital sites as well. And not only can you do Autoform, you can now plan mobile impressions also along with it. So as you go through and build it, it starts telling you what is the reach that you would have and what is the price. And if you want a better price, then you can optimize it further. So a static site need not be on for 8 weeks. You could probably do it for 6 weeks to meet a campaign objective. And similarly with digital, you don't need to be on every hour of the day. You could optimize it by day part. So this gives a planner, whether you are a planner in an agency or a planner in Autoform media owner, the ability to plan Autoform campaigns against briefs and mix them cleverly with mobile. So you're able to then say, I want to target audiences who went past my billboard, or we have run campaigns with clients where they want to target people who have not gone past the billboard. So you can start building different audience segment. So literally in one campaign, you've treated Autoform and mobile together. So I think that's one big point that drives the data and the adoption of data. But more and more during COVID, clients have started asking the question, planning is great, but what happened actually? How do I address these audiences in the digital world? So the second part of the platform is around the ability to follow a campaign. And as we execute the campaign, you're able to see what's the performance of that campaign, and you're able to address the audiences. So this is the post-campaign, or what we call as a campaign in flight measurement and attribution. So this is a particular campaign that's running. You can look at what was the date that it was running. You can look at the sites it was running on. So in this case, it was about 6 sites. And you can look at the audiences that it's trying to reach. So I'm going to quickly forward this as we go through it. Then you can look at specifically the site level details in terms of what audiences it reached. You can even bucket audiences by how many times you reach them, because if you have a billboard and somebody passes it 15, 20 times, you want to treat that group differently from others. So you can then even look at hourly and if understand when these audiences have come into these sites. You can go into further details. You can look at age, gender, or you can go further into even attribution. So if you're looking at whether that person visited the website, visited the billboard, and then visited an automotive showroom, then you're able to map and see how many of these people who have been past that particular location also visited a showroom. So you can go into a lot of these details in terms of analysis, and you can see what your campaign is delivering for you. And obviously, the minute you bring in mobile, you are then able to improve improve the effectiveness of these campaigns. Whereas if you're an asset owner, you may just want to look at a particular site and you may want to look at it and say, does this meet, what kind of brands can I take this to? So the biggest thing that media owners use this data for is to say, I have a site in Kolkata, it's not sold. What are the types of audiences this would attract? And which would be the brands that I can talk to? So automatically, it shows you the people who have gone past your billboard, what kind of brands have they interacted with. So this becomes powerful data for your sales process as well. So I think with that, I'll stop the demo. So if you look at what are the use cases that's going to drive these growth, we are working with a lot of brands in India. One of the a common use case that people come back with is when they buy 200 billboards or 800 billboards, they want to see what is that incremental reach so that they can understand which billboards are giving them the most reach and renew those billboards. So that's a very common requirement. The other kind of requirement is especially automotive, and a lot of location-driven businesses are looking at very hyper-local. My showroom is in a particular location, whether you're a shopping mall or you're an auto showroom, and then you look at how do you drive traffic to it. We also have use cases where people are looking at how many people are going past the billboard, how do we engage them on mobile. We've got some use cases in digital where the content can change dynamically. We have other interesting use cases where people want to see, because in India, digital only reaches less than 50% of the population. So they want to see, if I reach somebody on digital, how do I re-engage the same audience in Autoform? So, there are cases where you may have your own media if you're a bank, if you're a retailer with your own screens. So they are looking at how do we synchronize that content as well. And as you lead it up, there are use cases where more and more internet and outernet will come together towards a common purpose. And that's really when the OH industry would find a growth that's far superior than what we have seen today. So to lead that, just to find a closure on this presentation, what we have done is we have created what is called as an Outernet Marketing Interest Group. I know there are marketeers on the call as well. We are looking at 8 industry leaders per market, where we are opening up our platform for free for 6 months, where they can use this platform to address a couple of use cases or briefs, with the idea that this gets documented as industry knowledge and it gets published for the benefit of the industry. In summary, what we see this industry to be is maybe having a growth of 2, 3, 4, 5 times if the audience data gets adopted by the industry. I think on that note, I would want to thank you all for listening, and I'll pass it back to Rajiv.
Thank you so much, Shrikant. That's a fantastic innings that you played. It was like a T20 big knock. In limited time, you made maximum runs. I'm really hoping that you're looking for those 8 marketers. Maybe significantly more number of people would be queuing up to actually use the platform, and so that they are able to have an experience of this, and with some great case studies emerge from this, which would actually augment the opportunity of use of audience data for data. So thanks so much, Shrikant. Many more things to catch up on in this conference right now. There are many questions that will be coming in, but I will now move to Bharat. The stage is yours, or rather the screen is yours.
Thank you, Rajiv, and it was very insightful, Shrikant. And on similar lines, like just to give you a quick introduction, I've been in the media and entertainment space, consulting space for over 24 years. Worked across 2 consulting firms, EY and KPMG, specializing in helping advertisers optimizing their marketing spends. Right, so I kind of understand how advertisers think before they choose a particular medium, having spent 24 years in this sector. But somehow I must confess that sadly today advertisers kind of don't have that comfort with OOH as a medium, at least in India. All that can go wrong goes wrong in outdoor. I must very humbly confess that. But one thing can change the future is if all of us start focusing on audience data, right? And I'm trying to strongly advocate to all my clients the importance of location science. So that's the premise in which my presentation is going to be today. I'll just quickly project it. Can you guys see the presentation?
Yes.
Okay. Right. So we are an out and out outdoor agency, and we have invested significantly on tools, which I will talk about. See, primarily I'm talking about 4 concepts out here. One is compass, second is radar, third is beacon, and 4 is location science. So in outdoor, the first important concept is selection of sites. Today, how do brands select their sites? Right? It's like your word against my word. So we are trying to move from that, and we have developed this tool called compass. I'll give you an example to explain compass. What if a client who's in the education technology category, EdTech category, who's looking for an pan-India outdoor campaign in India, right? So how can Compass help him? See, Compass is an AI-based machine learning tool which maps close to around 1,200 towns with 20 points of interest. Say for example, in Salem, if this client wants to choose sites in a small town like Salem, now this Compass will help in identifying all the educational institutions which are in Salem and identify those areas for the client to choose from there all the sites available. There's a number of population out there in those specific areas. So such kind of data will help the client to choose the right location of that particular outdoor campaign. That is on the selection of sites. The second challenge is radar, which is a monitoring tool, outdoor monitoring tool. Once the campaign is up, the second challenge is on how it is monitored. So even here, all kinds of things go wrong here. So radar is a mobile app which is having 2 versions. One is the media owner version and the client version. So here, when the media owner mounts the particular campaign in Salem, he has to download this app from Play Store and click the photograph using this app. And within 60 seconds, it reaches the client with date, time, and geotagging. So there is no manual intervention out here, and we have plugged the whole monitoring seamlessly. So within 60 seconds, client gets to see the campaign. Third tool is Beacon. Beacon is basically on measurements. It's an intelligent camera placed on sites, and it gives you information like the kind of moving traffic. It tells you the kind of trucks which move from this side, the kind of four-wheelers which move from this side, etc. It gives you eyeball information. So compass on site planning, radar and monitoring, and beacon is on measurements. Now, moving towards location science. So we have tied up with a company called Sync, who has access to close to 350 million subscribers. Now, we all have mobile phones, and we have loads of apps downloaded in those mobile phones. What it does is when we are downloading those apps, it will ask you questions like whether allow, and all that stuff. So we actually give permission for location being shared and all that stuff. So this company has data of 350 million subscribers, and we can figure out the location of these people. So for example, in my mobile phone, if I have shared this information with this company called syncandnear.co. What it does is I stay in Navi Mumbai, and my daily route to office is say Lower Parel. It actually figures out my locations, and it can tell you what was the location which I took to office. And before that, we need to know this information on geotagging. We need the longitude and latitude information of the clients of their outdoor sites. It can actually tell you how many sites I was exposed to. So like that, it has 350 million users, and we can use this information and go back to the client and say that your campaign was exposed to X number of users. And this is raw data. It's not some extrapolation data. That is one. Second is, we also have this feature in this tool, whereby we can provide incremental reach. Say, for example, as I said, I stay in Navi Mumbai, and there are, assuming 1 lakh subscribers in Navi Mumbai, and out of which only 50,000 access this particular location during this period of the campaign. The balance 50,000 couldn't access, and maybe they are traveling, etc. So we can actually do a digital campaign and push these campaigns to them using in YouTube, etc. And then actually we can provide incremental reach in an outdoor campaign. So if you see net, we're talking of compass, which is a planning tool. We're talking of radar, which is a monitoring tool. Beacon is measurement. Location science is actually measurement and providing incremental reach. So that's the whole need of the hour currently in the outdoor space. And I'm sure once advertisers start using such kind of options and agencies start using such kind of options, advertisers will start pumping in more money into outdoor. And today, I know for sure, since having worked with Indian advertisers for the last 2.5 decades, I know that all these advertisers love outdoor as a medium. But thanks to all the challenges which are prevailing in the market today, they are not able to explore it to the fullest potential. If given an opportunity, if we give them such kind of tools, I'm confident that the outdoor spends is going to go up in the near future. That's it from my side. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bharat. I think that was absolutely precise, targeted like data science is. And I'm sure the manner in which you presented itself says what data can do for the industry. So what we'll do is that a lot of questions are also coming in from the participants. But before that, just a few points that I thought we will take up for a very brief discussion of maybe about 10 odd minutes, and then we will open the floor to the audiences for big questions. So, we know that the data market is growing, and there are several companies such as yours, both your companies are getting deep into this business. So how do you see a common currency for OH metrics evolving in this scenario?
Well, that's the ask. In fact, I've been talking to a lot of agencies. In fact, I'm also talking to the Outdoor Asia members. We need a common currency. Now, all the agencies have their own tools, right? So that's the need of the hour. And we are trying to get it. Let's see where we are going. The biggest challenge here, one more challenge is unity within the outdoor players. So that is something which we are pushing. I am quite optimistic that we can achieve it. And going forward, I'm hoping that we will achieve it. But that's a genuine concern here. And we need one system, like in television, we have BARC. So we need that one system which can be used significantly.
Srikanth, you would like to comment on this one?
Yeah, I mean, it's tricky question there, Rajiv. I mean, it's very, very clear. I mean, even before I started the call, somebody from E&Y actually texted me saying, wonderful opportunity and do well, because advertisers have said no data, no money. Right?
Oh, okay.
So that's the reality, right? We all want the advertisers to feel confident about this media.
Right.
Now, and that's where the single currency comes in. It doesn't mean that innovation stops, right? I mean, currency then helps you to give a platform on which different people can innovate. But for that currency to come, I think it needs somebody, a technology player who's neutral, who does not have any vested interest, right? Now, where we are struggling in India is to find that neutrality at the association level, at the right partnership level to make this work. I think if we get past that hurdle, I think there is, it's a need. I mean, it's definitely a need, because otherwise we are going to have everyone talk about data, and suddenly client also says, I don't know what they are talking about, right? So I think that's the hurdle that we need to go past. So I think it's a bit of inward looking. I don't think the challenge is outside. We need to look inwards and find the answer.
Right. So many a time, if innovations are there and new technologies or new solutions need to be introduced in a particular business segment or an industry, you might have a top-down approach. So if you're talking about a common currency or a set of data tools that are ready for application in this business, one way would be to use the funnel approach, and then things cascade down to all of the operators in this business. But I think that approach may not have quite worked. If it had, by now we would have seen the results. The other approach would be to have the bottom-up approach, which would mean to get the buy-in from every media operator in this particular country. Now, if we talk to the media operators, it's not that they're not aware of the importance of what we're talking about right now. It's just that they have not prepared or geared themselves to embrace these data technologies or any such kind of solutions. So there are necessarily bottlenecks, but those bottlenecks needs to be eased. So Srikanth, can you suggest what would be the right approach to ease those bottlenecks such that you're getting wide-scale adoption of whatever we are talking about right now?
I think it's already happening, Rajiv. I mean, one thing I've seen is COVID has been the best transformation that can happen to this industry, right?
Mm-hmm.
So whenever people ask me, I turn around and say, my revenues, like everybody on this call, we've been hammered. I mean, OH as an industry has been decimated. I can't find a better word for it, right?
Right.
We've all taken huge amounts of pain for the last 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
But what has happened is the thinking has started to change. Now
Right.
the need for transformation, the need for data has come in. And you started beautifully by saying it's going to be a series of dialogues, Rajiv. And
Yes.
I'm sure
Yes.
in the next dialogue, you would have at least a few media operators who would be willing to share their transformation that they have started undertaking in India in terms of adopting data, in terms of looking at planning in a different way. Because I think the mindset has to change. The media operators used to think that this was a real estate business. I construct something and then the clients would come. I think that model is changing. The media operators have started looking at it saying, I can't be just a real estate player. I also need to be a technology adopter and a transformer. So I think that's the big change that I see.
Absolutely.
And that's possible.
Absolutely. One very important aspect that needs to be established, and I'm not very sure whether you touched upon that aspect in your presentation or whether Bharat spoke about it. If you have, I just missed out, is that at the end of the day, all of the potential adopters and users need to see a direct correlation between the new ways of doing business and the returns from adopting those, because after all, there's a cost attached to anything that you adopt, right? So if we are talking about use of audience data for effective planning and buying, are we going to see a commensurate increase in ad spends?
Bharat, do you want to take it first or shall I go?
Yeah, I can take it. So, yes, so in my experience, Rajiv, like I'm talking to multiple categories of advertisers, even during the COVID times, and they are very openly sensing the use of data And also, once these kinds of information is available with them, and once they get that comfort on this medium, I can see clients who are spending less monies will end up spending more. Clients who are not spending money in outdoor because of all these challenges will start opening up to start spending up, spends in outdoor. So this can only take us to a better future. I'm thoroughly convinced that data, and if presented in the right manner, thereby we can actually tell them ROI for a particular campaign. I'm doubly confident that it can help brands, and this can only lead to benefit of this whole outdoor fraternity of all the media owners and agencies, and it is going to increase. It's going to help everyone. That's my personal sense, and I'm pretty bullish about it.
Sure. Srikanth, I would like you also to comment on this one, but before you do that, I just want to add one point that can you really have an evidence-based approach to taking this concept to the industry, because everybody is looking for that aspect as well, right? The broad level understanding is that this is good for the industry, but when you look at it at an individual level, at the level of a firm, then the question is that how does this bring in more ad dollars? How do I do my business better? How would my ROI stack up? So could you have an evidence-based approach to taking the concept to the industry?
Absolutely, Rajiv. I mean, I think when we talk about evidence, let me start with even something as basic question that we need to ask advertisers, right? Because at the end of the day, we all know digital reach in India is less than 50% of the population. And out-of-home reach is 90% of the population. So the first question is, why is there an inequality on budgets when an out-of-home reaches double what digital can reach, right? That's the first question.
Right.
The second question is, even if you reach with out-of-home or reach with digital, we all know, and 25%, even in India, if you look at the biggest out-of-home advertisers today, these are the digital brands, whether it is Uber, whether it is Netflix, these are born digital brands which are spending money on out-of-home. So when you look at it that way, whether you look at it from a reach or from an impact, out-of-home has it. But the problem has been because the industry has had legacy history, which has not been, very pretty, the advertisers kind of shy away from that industry. Right now, if a transparency comes in, if there is a common currency, if there is something that justifies why the money is going, I think money will flow. Now, the second part of it is currency is only what makes me transact. I mean, this is like we say in an industry, I'll join an organization because of the brand, but I stay in the organization because of my manager. Right? So a currency helps you to enter and spend money, but it will not help you to stay there and increase your funding unless you see returns on your campaign. Right? And
yes,
that's
absolutely.
where,
yes.
Right? And that's where we see, even in India now, we've started doing a lot of campaign in-flight reporting on what is happening to the campaign. Like we did in Pune for one of the clients where they had about 80 billboards that they had bought. They wanted to map it to about 60 showrooms to see what was the correlation between people who went past the billboard and who visited the showroom. Now, interestingly, midway through the project, the client said, listen, I have a different problem. Can I now look at which of these showrooms are not attracting traffic or underserviced by out-of-home? So you suddenly start seeing these questions which allow an advertiser to grow rather than just blindly say there is a currency and I'll put money, right? So, and that growth can only come through attribution, come through more usage of data. Currency is typically planning data, and ROI is typically in-flight data. So that's why the industry standard is the currency. ROI planning is where all agencies can innovate and they can bring in their own data sets to solve client-specific problems.
Excellent. One quick.
I just need to add one point here.
Yes, Bharat.
Allow me to share my screen for a second.
Sure.
I'll just show you one slide which I wanted to show. Can you see this slide? Here, using our location science information, we have data of 964 stores of Domino's, and we know 3 crore 45 people, 3 crores 45 lakh people access these 964 stores from December to January 2020.
Okay.
Now we can say, for example, Axis Bank. We have details like 2,825 Axis Bank branches. We know people like close to 5 crore people reached out to these branches. So if any other BFSI player, or if any other, say for example, KFC want to do their outdoor campaign, they can actually give them rich data to target these kind of subscribers.
Absolutely, yes, Bharat.
So this is that evidence
Yes.
what you were asking for. So now we are moving there. We are actually giving their advertisers with ROI information on how their outdoor campaigns have actually worked.
Actually, my next question was connected with this, which was that maybe the ad tech companies need to talk much more about all of these evidences and not and also take that message to the brand marketers. But I think we'll not dwell on that question right now because there are several questions that have come in from the participants, and I want to quickly get to that place. There were a few questions that came in even before the event started because we had invited questions from the participants that they can give us the questions. So by order of priority, I should be fair to kind of give this some time to the questions that landed early. So the first question comes from Vijesh Vijayan, head branding, MK Agro, and his question is, how do you see the new age media branding versus traditional OH branding in coming times, especially in urban market where digital has been running the sprint? Of course, this is not directly an audience data question. I think it's worth talking about it. Maybe your immediate thoughts on this one. Bharat or Srikanth? Bharat, you'd like to go in?
Yes, Srikanth, you want to
Srikanth? Sure. I mean, I briefly touched upon it, Rajiv. I think OH has a main role. We can't run away from it, right? Because it's not meant to be an activation medium, right? So I still see the need where people would invest on long-term sites, and it's going to continue, but more and more dollars will flow into the industry, not at the expense of the existing, but as a growth dollars, which would be more campaign-based, which would be more short-term, which would be more tactical. Now, even the large billboards, static, that you take a position in long-term, you still need audience data to support your business case on why you are renewing it. So I think more and more, that's what happens. Every asset will get measured. Some of it is being measured to prove why you should renew. Some of it is being measured so that you can then improve the effectiveness of the campaign by bringing digital. I think that's really
all right. Related to this question, I'll seek Bharat's response. Somewhere along is there a misnomer that audience data and all these tools are only relate to digital OH and that it does not connect with the traditional formats or what the West they call as classic formats. Have you really got this kind of a response from the industry at any point?
So this is basically education of the advertisers. See, now the kind of technology that I spoke about on location signs, it's on my mobile phone, right? So I am actually traveling from one place to another place, right? And I have the latitude information of all the sites. So we are giving information to the client to say that this person, Mr. X, has actually been exposed to the following sites of your campaigns. So, right, it's not whether it is digital or something. So it's for all kinds of sites. And one more thing, just for that earlier question of yours, Rajiv. See, now this MMRC is coming up with a new tender for this Metro Line 3 in Mumbai, right, which is from Churchgate to Andheri Seeps. And the first RFP, they are opening up directly for advertisers. They are not inviting agencies to come and participate in the tender. They are actually asking advertisers to directly buy the sites, directly buy the stations. So I'm saying a lot of things, a lot of changes are happening, and data and even innovative options are going to be opening up very soon. And it's going to change. It's going to be a new normal going forward, Rajiv.
All right, excellent. I'll quickly go to the next question. I think we'll keep the response is very brief so that we give maximum time to the maximum number of attention to the maximum number of questions. Next question comes from Partha Roy. He's the Chief Strategy Officer of MOH Moogly. Okay. How do advertisers get the confidence back to spend budgets on OH? And if they do spend, how do you put a figure to media buy, that is media acquisition cost for campaigns, when people movement are down from the pre-COVID benchmark days? Less people, less cost, but what is the cost and how do you arrive at that cost? Probably, I think the importance of audience data is being felt more important now than ever. Possibly, that's my response, but I'd like to have your responses.
Very quick one on that, Rajiv. I think the good news is OOH has been undersold so far. So when you actually measure it, you find that ROI is good. And it's even good during COVID with drop in audiences. That's been our uniform experience everywhere, right? So you do find that OOH gives you the return. It's just that it is not efficient.
All right. Okay. Sure. Bharat?
Yeah, so, during the lockdown, yes, I kind of agree with this gentleman on the kind of exposure and we being badly hit. But now things are shaping up well and it's going to look better going forward. Yeah.
Okay, fine. We'll quickly get across. If Dr. Roy, if your question had been answered and if you got a satisfactory answer, that's fine. But if you have a supplementary question, you can send it. Okay. Question from Aninda Banerjee from MCon. How do you validate the audience data as seen on Moving Walls platform? So that's specific to Srikanth.
Okay. There are 2 or 3 ways we validate it. One is we are a multi-signal based audience calculation, which means that within the model itself, we have 4, 5, 6 signals of data stream coming. So we are able to compare one signal to another and even open it up for comparison to look at what the final result is. So inherently, and that's the patent that we received for multi-signal processing, inherently the system itself has multiple signals of data. One of them is what Bharat mentioned too, which is the mobile phone signals that are coming in, but we do use other signals as well to build that robustness. The second big one is that in Singapore, the industry association has selected our techniques. We have opened it up to audits and we have said they can appoint an auditor to audit our methods and methodology of what we do.
Fantastic. Next question from Shalini Shankar from Lakshya Media. And a question is the campaign tracking done using mobile tower data?
Bharat, you want to take it first?
The campaign tracking is done using, sharing of your location information on your mobile phone, right? And all these companies, like for example, the alliance we have with Sync and Near.co, they have close to 350 million subscribers. So we get information on a real-time basis from the subscriber base.
Just to add on to what Bharat said, because we work with multiple signals, telecom tower-based signals are not accurate at a location level because they are tower-based, and you can triangulate it into probably a 1 square kilometer area, but we can't triangulate it close to a billboard. So typically, to get somebody near a billboard, the only way to do it is to go after the GPS data on the mobile phone. So there are 2 methods. There is a method which is the in-app data aggregation model that Bharat referred to, which is also one source of data for us. The other method, which is not available yet in India, which is available in some markets like Singapore and Malaysia, where we work with telecom providers, is that they provide you with the Wi-Fi data points that are coming through that. Because if you understand the telecom engineering, 4G and 5G have become more and more Wi-Fi based. So what that means is the traditional towers that we saw 10 years back, which is this high, big monolithic structures, have given way to small cells, as they are called, which are deployed everywhere. Right? So that technology, to my knowledge in India, no telecom provider is ready to provide that data to the industry yet. And when that time comes, that becomes another signal that we will adopt into our systems.
Fantastic. There was another prior question that came in before session began. This came from S. Kumar managing director of Shrishti Communications, and that company manages assets in the transit space. And so, as we know that audience data, its question relates to this particular point, that audience data is in any way tracked and monitored in controlled environments such as airports and railway stations and such other places. So typically, as ad tech companies or people providing ad tech solutions, what further improvements can you bring about there such that they really benefit, and why must they embrace the solutions that you're offering?
Right. If I can just continue on the technology thing that I talked about.
Right.
So you have different signals, right? So you have the GPS SDK signal, which is coming from the in-app data. Now, obviously, in indoor, like airports, as they have mentioned, it fails to give you the knowledge of whether you are at the baggage counter or you're at an immigration area or you are at a boarding.
Okay.
And the Autoform assets in each of these areas are priced differently and sold differently, right? So you need that level of granularity of data, which unfortunately none of these can provide. So the only way you get that level of data is if you were to deploy what the industry calls as IoT devices, Internet of Things, which is the term IoT devices that you deploy. Then you are able to triangulate and get a knowledge of a user who's within 5 meters, 10 meters accuracy. And incidentally, in India, we have many IoT deployments. As we speak now, in Calcutta, we are deploying about 40 IoT devices to enrich the data set which is provided by other signals. So, yes, then you need to, if you go more indoor, I think today the best way to do it is IoT, or work with the provider of that. So, for example, in Vietnam airport, we worked with the Wi-Fi provider of the airport. So, without having to deploy a single device, we were able to use the Wi-Fi data and then build models on whether they were at the immigration area or baggage counter and so on. So these are the two methods that are available.
Fantastic. There was another question also from Shalini Shankar of Lakshmi Media, and that question is directed to Bharat. And the question is that Beacon is an interesting concept. This intelligent camera has been put on how many sites across India?
See, currently pre-COVID, we started with around 15 sites in India. And unfortunately, because of COVID, we couldn't carry that exercise forward. But now we are, the infrastructure is ready. And once the lockdown opens up, we will be expanding to more sites. But we just more or less, sometime in January 2020 is when we were ready with the technology and all that. So by the time we were ready, the COVID hit us. So, maybe in by December or January, we should be getting more sites. But, now, there is this whole concept which we are brainstorming internally, Raji, is that now for us to put Beacon, the media owner needs to invest at least some portion of the hardware cost because it's an intelligent camera, right? So, but now we are exploring that after this alliance with Sync Media and Near.co, we are actually exploring using this data of 350 million subscribers, which can actually replace Beacon. So we are doing a lot of internal discussions, and hopefully we will go with what is right for the market and address this whole concern of theirs.
Looks like the accelerated efforts to bring out vaccine, similar efforts are being, your efforts also getting accelerated, right? To take the... All right. Next question is from Manu Wirtz of Times Group, and this question is, will the use of audience data increase the OH pie or just optimize the allocation of budget? Who wants to go in first?
Very good question. So yes, there is this whole session with thought process that it can take money from one pocket and put it in another pocket. I agree that possibility is there, but I strongly, being a follower of OH, and it's a passionate medium, I feel I'm pretty bullish about the OH medium. It's going to grow multiple folds in the next 2 to 3 years.
What would that be? I'm just out of curiosity. What would that percentage-wise, what did it work out?
Minimum 25% and maximum doubling the whole number.
All right. On a low base, I think 25% looks pretty good. Yep. Yeah. Srikanth, any comments from you?
No, the analyst has given the numbers. I'll go with that. But I just want to add, I want to bring it back to all of us in this call. I think whoever is logged into this call, 100 plus,
Right.
I think we should ask the common sense question, right? If we ask that, this problem will go away. If digital reaches 50% of the population and
Right.
Autoform reaches 90% of the population, why is there an inequality? Why is there injustice to Autoform, right? I think that's the single thing if we focus on and we provide data to support that emotional question. I have no doubt what Bharat projected is easily achievable. Even we can outdo that.
All right. So, of course, I mean, talking about the injustice, I think this injustice has meted out not for years, but for a few decades, I suppose. Ever since TV came on the scene, and then, of course, digital media and its strident growth. So, I think, yes, time to really ask these serious questions to all ourselves as to why we are missing out so much when this medium is reaching out to 90% of the audience. Staggering numbers, but don't show the returns as yet. Think audience data is probably the message that will go out from this particular session. All right. The next question, this person has not given his name, but the question is directed to Bharat and says, you spoke about beacons, but what is the percentage of installation required to make it effective?
Okay. So when we were launching Beacon, there are close to around 129,000 sites in India, right? And we don't need to get beacons across all the sites. Our internal benchmark was close to around 8,000 to 10,000 sites, right? Which can easily take care of the extrapolation of this whole 129,000 sites in India. But now, as I just said in the earlier question, now that we are working on newer technologies, like even this 350 million subscribers from Sync Data, we might even go with the location science concept instead of going with Beacon, because in Beacon currently the media owners have to invest on the hardware cost, whereas here we don't need any investment from anybody. We have ready subscribers, 350 million subscribers. So that can be more effective and that can be more innovative than beacons. So, but I hold this, I'm saying that it's a wonderful technology, and we will see on certain premium sites, we will certainly go with beacon.
All right, thank you. I hope the question has been adequately answered. We'll move to the next one. This comes from Anil Balan of Splendor iMag, and the question is, what is the challenge in the industry to embrace technology? Is it legacy driving the majority or reluctance to bite the bullet? Of course, this is a very overarching question, but if you really want to give a short answer to this, that'll be great.
So,
can I take this question?
Sure.
Oh, sure. I think you really like this one, right?
I want to say that, mindset has to change. We were operating in some owners and some agencies genuinely don't want to be transparent. Yeah. They just don't want to be transparent. I'm sorry to say this. I represent the outdoor sector. I want the outdoor medium to grow, and hence I'm passionately telling that anybody who's open for transparency will never object to such kind of innovations. But yes, all this will reduce all the leakages, and that is something which the media owners and they have to expect. And hence the mindset problem.
But I just want to offer a counterpoint there, because yes, I do accept the point of transparency not really there to the levels that it should have been. But the other point is that maybe, let's not, if you're not focusing on the transparency aspect, and as a matter of fact, which has been pilloried for lack of transparency, but that's not very different for a whole lot of other business sectors. If you keep aside the transparency aspect, thus far, the solutions that were available to the OH, maybe they were not compelling enough for people to actually accept it. I just want Srikanth to respond to that.
No, I'm reminded of a famous statement the Nokia CEO said, I was on a burning ship and I did not realize it. Right? I think that's where the industry was, because there was an existing business and there was a reluctance to change it. That was the question, right? Thankfully, I think COVID has woken up everybody. And I'm not saying it to please anybody. What we have seen in our experiences, not just India, and as we speak now, there are at least about 4 or 5 Indian outdoor players who have signed agreements to implement data measurement and automation on their sites. And I'm not talking of just India. I'm saying even in Myanmar, we've got media owners who have signed up. So across the board, whether it's Vietnam, forget Singapore, Malaysia, which we can call as developed markets, but I'm saying even in other markets, we are seeing that the asset owners coming around saying, I need to transform or I cannot survive. Right? So that's one part of the equation. Even in India. That's why I said, you said it's going to be a continuing dialogue. And I'm telling you, I would be happy to propose some names, and maybe they want to come public, maybe they're not ready yet, but let them go through that journey and they could become the champions of change in communicating it, right? So that's one part, which is the supply part. But also, they will lose momentum if the demand part does not come to the table with very similar enthusiasm, right? So we need both sides to come with enthusiasm and embrace this concept, which is where our Outernet marketing interest group, where we are saying, and there's a bit of history to it. I don't know how many of you are aware that the migration from BSC to NSC happened with 8 brands. 8 brands moved from BSC to NSC, which started the change in India. And in a very similar way, before NSC, it was all about somebody screaming a price and the other person accepting a price. So there is a reason why we picked 8, and in Chinese 8 is a very auspicious number. So we said, okay, why don't we pick it? It's a very prosperous number. But I think the enthusiasm can be generated on both sides. Then I think within a matter of six months or so, you will start seeing those changes and the impact.
Fantastic. 6 months. It's a lot of optimism really out there, and really hope that we see that on the ground as well. There is another question. In this case, the person has not put his name there. And in fact, this question has already been answered, I would reckon, that you have got great tools, but why people are not buying, and you need to do that. So I think we've touched upon the mindset issue. We've touched about how it can become a compelling case. Maybe if you have time in the end, maybe you can still come back to this particular question. But I'll move to the next one, which is from Chaitanya Deshmukh of Tata Communication. And the question is, how do you see growth or preference of advertisers towards hyperlocal mediums like ATM advertising, which are even capable of providing consumer footfall data and programmatic operations, mostly in Tier 2 and Tier 3 markets? So, yeah, a very interesting question. In fact, this company is specialized in this space. They came in a few years ago. I think they must have seen a measure of success, but I think it could be much more than that. A very good question.
I completely agree to this. There is a huge potential for this kind of marketing tool.
Right. So is there something that you would like to add to what they're doing by which actually that business could be, increase several fold?
No, I would love to add to this, Raji. I mean, this is the reality, right? The minute we go hyper-local, what that means is that the volume of transactions has to increase, because clients are then going to go very niche and say, I want a Tier 3 city like Salem, perhaps. Now, how many clients need to do that for a media in Salem to be successful, right? That's where automation comes in. We have not touched upon that aspect today. We have talked about the data, but you need automation if you were to transact 1,000 clients instead of 5 clients who are buying 1,000 billboards. Now you have to flip this around and say, it's not going to be 5 clients who buy 1,000 billboards. It's going to be 1,000 clients who will buy 5 billboards, perhaps, right? So when you do that, I think data is just the foundation for that innovation. Automation has to kick in. Your site has to be visible to 1,000 buyers. They have to be easy to buy. And I think that's the 2 sides to the coin that the industry needs to face.
Srikanth, in this particular case, we are talking specific to Tata Communication. It's about their ATM screens, right?
Absolutely.
So that are open to advertising, and how in the context of hyperlocal advertising, how all of this audience data that we're talking about can actually bring about growth in that space. So any particular point you want to add?
The reality is I can't click on my PC right now and buy 1 screen or 10 screens in Salem where the ATM screen exists, right? So the ease of automation of 1,000 buyers buying hyper-local has not really come into play yet. I mean,
and especially in Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities, that's the question is about. Yeah.
And I don't want to let the cat out of the bag the same way Bharat struggles with some questions. We struggle with this question to say, when a Facebook can be bought online, why are we not buying hyperlocal out-of-home online, right? And these are questions to which we are going to find answers very soon. Why can't e-commerce be a way for out-of-home media to be bought? In every industry, 40 to 50% of out-of-home is being bought by local players. So if I'm a small operator in Salem and I'm into a garment store in Salem, why can't I log in and buy 5 ATMs in Salem? It is because that level of automation which uses data does not exist. And it's going to come soon. I mean, we are working on that problem. We'll make some announcement in that space. We want to make it available so that people can buy.
All right. Thank you, Srikanth. The next question comes from your own organization, so obviously it is not directed to you. It comes from Mandakini Devi. Hi, Mandy. The question is, does COVID movement restrictions have an impact on the mobile data collected and reporting? And of course, the second part is to me, say that in your opinion, what role do you think other associations will play in creating the space for dialogue for transformation, innovation, and adoption of data? But I'll get the first question answered by Bharat. You like to? Yeah.
I can only tell you the other day I went to Merriment Point after 4 months to attend one client meeting.
Okay.
And I was searching for parking for 45 minutes.
Oh, all right. Okay.
Right. So obviously people have started moving out. Right, and mobile reaching, the data which you get through this mobile SDKs and all that stuff is pretty important for us to get into analytics and go back to clients and how smartly we use this data and try to help them and give them insights. See, data is available, but what do you do with this data? Right, so we can't keep blaming the outdoor sector and the transparency for everything. We also need to be smart enough to use this data and go back to the client and present it in a manner that client sees value in it.
All right, absolutely. I'll try to address the second part that Mandy has asked with regard to the role of associations. I'm absolutely certain that associations are all imbued with this great spirit of wanting to drive the industry growth. But the way the associations are structured, and this is my personal view, is that it does not represent all the constituents of this industry. And finally, OH actually operates in silos. We have got media owning firms in one set, we have got media agencies in another set, then we've got ad tech companies such as yours operating, and they've got a number of silos. And we do not have an overarching association that brings all of them together. But the moment we are talking about audience data and application of data applications and such things, it has to be overarching, it has to be integrated. So one would hope that the associations start talking to each other. If in the absence of one overarching association, maybe all of the existing associations need to talk to each other and find a way to move forward with the ambition of enhancing the competitiveness of Indian OH, which has got tremendous potential and to a large extent has underperformed all these years. Okay, I mean, that's a subject for another dialogue. So I'll not get there. We'll move to another question. This is, again, the person I've given his name, but it's directed the question to Srikanth. It says, which data mentions the reach of outdoor as 90% and digital 50%? This is an interesting data for marketers to open their eyes.
Offhand, I'm not able to share with you, Raji, but I'm happy to send that link to you. But again, I'm saying at the end of the day, unless you're an invalid who doesn't step out of the house, for whatever reason you don't step out of the house, I think pretty much outdoor as a media reaches you. But it is based on some research, and I'm happy to share that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it'd be good to share that because there's a tremendously influential point of view and a data point that can be utilized by all the industry players. Because after all, in a competitive space, these are things that actually make people wake up, right?
Yeah.
All right. I'll quickly move to the next one. This is from Sarah from Vista Media London. The question is 40% digital penetration versus 90% OOH presentation. How does this look by demographic, though? Example, urban populations wealthy enough to purchase cars. Srikanth?
Yeah. I mean, see, we all know that we do have premium OH locations. So let's say airport in the past or even after COVID, I think airport will become a premium location as people have already started traveling. So there are premium locations where you would get premium audiences in OH. That's instinctively known. So I think, so in that sense, if you look at it, you would have, whether you look at purchasing of cars, we have even OH sites which are in private jet areas, right? So you're not going to use audience metrics as a currency, which is mindlessly used for automation. There would be an element of premiumness that comes in. And specific to OH, there is also, and I think there was an earlier question also on this to say, should you measure it by CPM, right? So a difference, and I think UK has done a lot of research, Ocean Outdoor initiated some of the research in terms of impact of OH assets. So when I look at a large OH asset, the impact that I get compared to seeing a small mobile phone and a banner ad on that mobile phone, I think they are not comparable CPMs that we should take away. So I think outdoor has got a couple of brilliant plus to it, which is the size and the shape and the premiumness of a location. And I think that will continue. So if you look at it, sites would still have data, but it's not going to be traded purely based on data. The decisioning process has to take in other elements as well.
Okay, fantastic. So I hope your question has been answered in the way that you had wanted. We'll go to the next one.
I would just add, that's the struggle that programmatic platforms, even we play in the programmatic space of digital out of home. That's the struggle that we are all facing today, right? Because we have something called as impression multiplier, which helps you determine whether the price is right or wrong. But the industry has not developed the impact score for us to figure out whether the price is right or wrong. So I think there's still, the industry has got a lot more innovation that it needs to do to get there.
Fantastic. Shashi Chaudhary, head of Century, and also is the president of the Airport Association. His question is, how do people feel about AOH, that is airport OH growth, compared to the slow growth of traditional OH, where all sorts of advertising options are available, like traditional, digital, activation, and more. So very specific to the airport media growth potential. I'm sure it ties in with the subject of audience data. So
my personal view, airport transit, specifically airport, is obviously more secure and other advertisers can also afford it. I think the potential is there and it can keep growing, and we need to see whether if we can get the prices down so that we can get more advertisers in. Currently there's only a very limited set of advertisers who explore airport advertising. So there are a lot of factors responsible for it, but personally I feel it's on the rise.
Okay, I'll quickly go with the questions because several of them queued still, and we've got very little time left. So
one way we will alternate, Rajiv, so that we don't answer the same question. So
that's right, absolutely. So the next question comes from Promananda Alangban from Bangalore International Airport, and his question is: OH is the most unorganized industry at the moment compared to print, digital, TV, where there is no respect for other media owners. In such scenarios, how are we going to ensure data plays their role to deliver ROI?
I'm inspired by a Mani Ratnam movie called Guru, where every problem that he faces, he says, growth is the solution, right? Because I think if we don't grow, it's the same players and the same problems that we will discuss.
Right.
If industry doubles, if there is growth, fresh thinking comes in, and I think this problem will go away.
All right. Okay, I think that's a short answer to a big question. Thank you. All right. The next question is from Chetan Novel from Interspace Communication. And he says, the data collected and technically potential customer with a mobile device, which is then collected by the company and shared with advertiser, agencies, and clients. However, can one know how many people actually seen the campaign while moving past them? Bharat, I think would like to take this question.
Yeah, let me put a counter question.
Yep.
The TRPs which you get in television,
mm-hmm.
right? How do you get comfort that they have watched the ad and they have watched the program?
Well, that's another topic for another debate. But
right. So when a person is moving through a particular location, all we can say is he's exposed to a particular particular location, and that is all. And plus, we have to make sense out of this data, and the exposure is there.
Or maybe
Exposure is there.
can we put it this way, that it's for want of applying many more technologies in the space that we are not able to do that currently, but definitely it can be
Rajiv,
done.
I think it's a very important question in a way. So sorry for jumping in, even though I said we'll alternate. I think, yes, there is technology available, camera-based technology, which can measure eyeball and so on in terms of, but I don't think that's the answer, right? I mean, you kind of touched upon it. We filed the second patent now, and the second patents, why do clients spend money? It's for an outcome. Now, today, I advertise in Autoform because I'm Netflix and I want people to download my app and do something with it. I advertise in Uber Eats because I want them to order food using my app. So every advertiser today is getting more and more outcome driven in the Autoform space.
Right.
Now, if you are able to bring your own data of where your orders came in from, and you're able to blend that, then you are suddenly saying, I don't need to know why people are watching. Watching is only one step. What's the outcome I wanted?
Absolutely.
The outcome I wanted is app download, right? I think we can just skip it. I mean, it's like I say in India, we skipped fixed phones where only a percentage of the population had it. And suddenly, 5% of the population had fixed phones. And then 70% of the population have mobile phones. I think it's the same thinking. I think we can just skip over this camera business and just focus on what's the outcome they wanted. And that's the second thing.
I think the outcomes justify all the investments that have been made. There's nothing like it, right? We do not worry too much about the process and functions. Question from Michael Klug, Profinet Services from Germany. And his question is, in one sentence, how do you help media owners now on the OH markets, as many countries also in EU expecting a huge lockdown for moving audiences? Well, let's check the ground realities.
So our view has been, but as part of the transformation, and Bharat can add on to it, as part of the transformation, we need to get out of this. OH means large billboards and hoardings. I think we need to move away from that asset. We need to think about how do you reach audiences on the move, in which case mobile automatically plays in. So as we speak now, whether it is in India, we are working with one of the leading media owners in saying how do they add mobile impressions to Autoform. And I think that's the way you break out of it, whether it is COVID today or another problem. Your business is diversified in getting people solving a problem for an advertiser. So a little bit of transformation has to happen. Or we have to pray for the issue to go away.
Of course, and we are all, the entire 8 billion people on this planet are doing that, right? But we still don't know where it is going. But also we can look at the OH canvas and look at it in its entirety. Probably that's the message you're saying, is that maybe when we think of OH, we get fixated on the large formats, which are very important. Minus that, I don't think OH will deliver adequately. But it is that and many more, right?
Yes.
So
it's the
probably
diversification
as people adapt to the new ways of living with this, in this pandemic situation, there will still be media that's being consumed when you're out of home, right? That's the point you're making, Mr. Srikanth, right?
Yes.
Okay.
In fact, we just ran a campaign for, I want to give an actual use case. We ran a campaign for Food Panda, which is app-based delivery. And they were very clear, given the budgets, given that people were not moving in certain locations, they said, can mobile become a substitute reach mechanism? So I would have bought a billboard in a particular location, but I'm not buying it today because people are not there. Can I now use mobile? So that's the way the advertisers are thinking. So the asset owners need to think that way.
Absolutely. That would be a brilliant situation when the equation works out that way. Okay, I have another question from Vivek Rajalingam, and this is from Hawk AI, Artificial Intelligence. Using an intelligent camera sounds good, but how do you plan to compute the huge amount of data and scale this model up?
It's a challenge. I agree. I agree that it's a challenge, and we are. That's the reason we are actually growing. We're planning to grow on phases, that we don't want to reach 8,000 cameras on year one. We want to do 1,000 on year one, see what we can do with the data. And then only if we are convinced, then we can move to next 2,000, etc. So we are also on the trial and error method, and we will take it to the next step only when we are convinced on the first step.
Okay.
Right. So I agree with this. It's an existing challenge. I recognize the challenge.
All right.
Yeah.
I'll just very similar way, Rajiv, if I can add on to it.
Yes.
So the question is, do you deploy or do you ride on the existing infrastructure? So what we do is, we have a IoT device which we call as LAMP, which is a physical device with camera, with Wi-Fi and Bluetooth that you can deploy.
Okay.
Or in some cases, we are able to tap in. If the indoor location already has a security camera, we are able to tap onto the security camera and build analytics without any additional deployment. If the indoor location already has a Wi-Fi infrastructure, we are able to put some algorithms on top of it and in which case, no new hardware, no cost, but we need to tap into an existing infrastructure. This becomes more relevant in an indoor.
All right. Okay. Yeah. I think this ought to be the last question, because I think we're terribly out of time now. This is also a question asked by Partha Roy. He has asked another one question earlier, and is directed to Srikanth. How much do you think mapping attribution will help in increasing ad dollars to OH, of course?
I mean, I gave that example earlier. You join a company because of the brand. Sure, when you have a published currency, which is gives a comfort for people to spend. But unless I see results for my campaign, why would I spend more? So I think that's the magic there, that attribution will make an advertiser see value. And I just want to add on some of these we learned from history, Rajiv.
Yes.
When I learned it, I was stunned that Amazon was the largest advertiser of Google.
Right.
And that's how Amazon built their e-commerce business. They built it on Google search. And guess where they are today? They are the biggest competitor of Google on search.
Absolutely. They are an advertising space, a platform themselves, right?
Exactly. So results always drive investments eventually, right? So I think attribution will drive increased investments in the long run. Currency will just get you to the table.
Okay, I'm going to take only just one or two questions, because just want to give everybody the opportunity of having their questions answered. So Lokesh Kumar asked this: how do we make the adoption more viable financially for the media owner? Big question, but needs to be answered.
Well, we will compromise little. Let the media owners compromise little. Let us both compromise on both sides, and then make it happen. So the mindset and the intent should be there to do something for the sector, right? So all of us have to chip in. I agree. All these technologies they all come with a cost. Like, for example, Beacon, we have a huge hardware cost, right? So obviously we are also internally brainstorming on how to compromise, how to reduce the cost and all that stuff. So we are more than happy with options, right? But we are looking for long-term commitments from all these media owners. So one is, at the end of the day, such technologies are going to help you get premium rates from advertisers. Tomorrow, if you go and tom-tom to clients that your site can garner so many eyeballs, you are going to go and get more rates out of those clients, right? So it's going to help. It's a long-term perspective where gradually even clients get used to it, gradually media owners get used to it, and even technology providers and media agencies who have technologies will get used to it. I don't know. I hope I have answered the question.
Well, I think that this is again a subject that needs to be worked out. It's ought to help in how business decisions can be taken. How, of course, the intent is always there. The partnering approach is always there. Eventually, something is stopping everyone from collaborating on this front. We still need to work that out.
If you will allow me 10 seconds.
Yes,
the same way we have taken 8 brands on the demand side, we also said media owners, we can open up the platform for free. So if there are people who are not using it, we'll open it up for free. So they get a feel for what they can do, and then the payment kicks in. So we do have a concept of a free module in the platform that we can open up.
I think ad tech companies and everyone needs to make some noise. That's very important, because appears that there are many business enabling tools and processes that are available, but they're just not being used enough, right? And I think collectively, if everybody gets to understand that, it'll be amazing for the industry. Two more questions, but I really want only 10-second answers maybe from you. Sorry about it. Manoj Diore, the penetration of digital is 50%. So in terms of local demography, it's assumed to be higher in metros, Tier 1 towns. So does that mean digital spends will be focused on metros and Tier 1, 2 towns, and OH spends will shift to rural areas where the penetration of digital is lower? As I understand, I think digital is Manoj's understanding is that digital will take the space of traditional formats, such that traditional formats become more visible in the rural areas. So what's your response to that? You have to contextualize it to the audience data, because that's a point of discussion today.
I kind of humbly beg to disagree to this question, and it will not create an impact, and it will be more or less the same, and digital will grow.
All right.
The way it is growing, irrespective if it is urban or rural. Right. Yes. Today in India, if you see the digital penetration is more in urban areas. I agree with you. But even it is picking up in all the villages and all that stuff. So.
Right. But really speaking, it's a challenge between one medium cannibalizing the other, and yet the other challenge that you cannot create a clutter of too many media units. Oversupply is a problem for the industry. So I think it's a tightrope walk. Srikanth, 10 seconds.
Yeah. It's in both cases, it's the half glass full that I'm looking at, right? In urban areas, digital penetration may be high, but we all know Autoform primes. Digital does not prime effectively. So Autoform will still play a huge role in urban areas. Now we come to rural areas.
Mm-hmm.
Availability of data will build the advertiser confidence. Otherwise, today it's only Mumbai, Delhi, which is getting bulk of the advertising spends. Whereas now the advertising confidence will go higher with audience data. So whether it's a Guwahati or whether it is a Salem, will start attracting more money. That's the view.
All right. This is the final question from Prashant Verma. Hi, Prashant. Question is, what would be the overall impact of growth we can anticipate with technology maybe in the next 5 years? You said 25% growth, right? But Prashant's question is for 5 years. So let's have your response from that.
Well, I can see it in the next 5 years. The outdoor spends can go as high as 300% of what we are today. More than 300%. More than 300%.
All right. That's that would be quite significant. Srikanth.
Okay. I think numbers have been addressed by Bharat, so let me make it into a bit of a contextual conversation I had with a senior exec in Google, because we work with them in bringing technology to Autoform. And he said, and it just surprised me, he said, YouTube may not be around 5 years from now, but Autoform will still play a prominent role. Oh. And he said the industry would be big. So that's how others are seeing this, right? Somehow within the industry, we're not able to see that potential yet.
Fantastic. It's such positive notes. I think there was no better way to have closed this conversation with two big statements: 300% growth over 5 years, and OH getting bigger than YouTube. It already is, but needs to be accepted in those terms. Fantastic. Thank you so much, Srikanth. Thank you so much, Bharat, for your amazing presentations and your amazing responses to the questions. A very, very big thank you to all the participants. I was very happy to see participation from the overseas, from across the sectors. I think it's been one of the best sessions that I had the opportunity to moderate. So I thank every one of you for being here. We're going to have this OH Dialogue series every now and then. You will be notified well in advance over the themes that are going to be taken up. And let's make it all happen. We are in it together. Let's make it big. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. So have a nice evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for inviting. Nice meeting you, Srikanth.
Brilliant. Yeah. Thank you.